Welcome to U5L5 special right triangles. So there's two special right triangles, the 45-45-90 and the 30-60-90, and they have special relationships. So the 45-45-90 is a triangle with two 45-degree angles and a 90-degree angle. Okay? In this case, both of the legs are the same because this is an isosceles triangle with two legs the same and two angles the same. Okay? So each of our legs we'll call L. Whatever one is, the other is the same. If one is 10, the other is 10. If one is 4, the other is 4. If one is 600, the other is 600, okay? The hypotenuse, on the other hand, is L times the square root of 2. So the hypotenuse on a 45-45-90 is whatever the leg is times the square root of 2. So that relationship is fairly simple. Keep in mind that if you have one of the legs, right, then you have the other leg. And then if you want the hypotenuse, you just multiply that leg times the square root of 2. If you already have the hypotenuse, you will have to go backwards to find the leg, and I'll show you how to do that. Looking at a 30-60-90, which is a triangle with a 30-degree, a 60-degree, and a 90-degree angle, okay? This one's a little more complicated because there are three different side lengths this time, right? There's still a hypotenuse, but then there's a shorter leg and a longer leg. And how to differentiate is this. Look where the 30-degree angle is. That's the smallest angle. So across from that is the shortest side. And the shorter leg is going to be across from the 30-degree, and that's going to be L. Okay? So this shorter leg across from the 30 is going to be L. The hypotenuse is going to be 2L. So H is going to be 2L this time. So similar but different. This was L square root 2 over here. This is now 2L. And then our longer leg is going to be L times the square root of 3. So our longer leg, which is whatever's left, right? It's going to be the one across from the 60, is going to be L times the square root of 3. So this is the longer leg over here. And then this is the shorter leg where the L is. Keep in mind, that shorter leg decides everything else. Notice that if the shorter leg is L, all you do is multiply by 2 for the hypotenuse and multiply by the square root of 3 for the longer leg. If you don't have the shorter leg, you do have to find it before you can find whatever else is missing. For example, if you had 2L and you needed to find L, you would just go backwards to find L by dividing by 2. If you have, for example, L square root 3, you have the longer leg, you need to find L, you would divide by square root 3. And I'll show you how to do that. All right, so looking at example 1, it says find the missing side lengths in the triangles below. So basically, we are going to find the hypotenuse, and then we're going to find the other leg. So keep in mind, in a 45-45-90, the relationship is always the same. Both legs are the same, and the hypotenuse is the leg times square root of 2. So my H is L times square root of 2, and my legs are the other two. So I have L and L. So that means L is 5, right? Because that's the side length I have there at the bottom. So if L is 5, then the other leg is also 5. Okay? And then the hypotenuse is the L, the 5, times the square root of 2. Perfect. All right, so for B, we're looking at a 30-60-90. So we have a 30, a 60, and 90. Okay, so what I'm going to look for first is the shortest side, which is going to, number one, it's usually going to look the shortest, but going off of just facts, right, you're going to go across from the 30-degree angle. So across from our 30-degree angle is going to be the 2, and so that's going to be our L, okay? Our hypotenuse is always going to be 2L in this case. Our hypotenuse is always 2L in this case, and so, of course, this is going to be, hypotenuse is 2L. And then our last leg, which is the longer leg, is going to be L square root 3. L times square root 3. So what we're going to do now is we're going to find these missing links. So we know what L is. So to find 2L is easy. It's just 2 times L. So 2 times 2, which is going to give us 4. And then L square root 3, well, we already know L is 2. And so L square root 3, we're just going to do 2 times square root of 3, which I can't really do because one's a square root and one's a whole number. So we'll just leave it that way. All right, let's take a look at some other examples here. So for example 2, find the missing lengths in the triangles below. We're going to start with some fairly simple problems here. Okay, so looking at example 2A, what I'm going to notice is that it said that it gives us one leg that's 5 square root 3, and we're looking for 2 other values. So I'm just going to fill in the missing angle first. So if we have a 90 and a 60, the missing angle, right? So 90 and 60, the missing angle here has to be a 30. Okay, it's a 30, 60, 90. So this one is a 30, 60, 90, and we're missing the 30-degree angle. So I'm going to put that in the bottom right corner. Across from that is the smallest side, which is going to be our L. Okay, so we don't know what L is right now because that's labeled as a V and we don't know what it is. Okay, our hypotenuse is going to be 2L. So U is going to be 2L. And then the longer leg, and we can look back to the front so you can see why I'm doing this, that longer leg is always going to be L square root 3. So this longer leg is going to be L square root 3. So if we compare the side that we have, which is the 5 square root 3, with what it equals, which is L square root 3, hopefully you guys can see that the square root 3 matches. So if I just ignore that for a second, then L must be 5. So this means that L is 5. But that means that this side over here, the shortest side is 5, which means that V is 5 because V is L, right? Those are the same thing. So V is 5. Now looking at U is 2L. So now that I know what L is, because we got it here, L is 5, now I can plug that in, and 2 times 5 is going to give me 10. And so our U is 10. And there's our two values, okay? All right, looking at B, so we have a 45 and a 90. So that means this is a 45, 45, 90 triangle. This is a 45, 45, 90 triangle. The other angle is a 45, which means both the sides are the same. Both the legs are the same, excuse me. And the hypotenuse will be different. So let's label these. So we have the hypotenuse is across from the right angle, and the hypotenuse in a 45, 45, 90 is always going to be L square root 2. So let's write that down. So the hypotenuse is going to be L square root 2. Well, they both have a square root 2, so we can kind of just ignore that for a second, and we can see that L is 9. So L equals 9. But isn't it also true that both of our legs are L, right? L stands for leg, and they are the same. So that means that X and Y are both a leg, right? These are both a leg, which means that X and Y are both 9. Okay? So X and Y are both 9. All right, perfect. Last one here, C. Let's take a look. So for C, what we see is we have a 30, 60, 90 again, because I see the 90 and I see the 60, which means this one has to be a 30. So this is a 30, 60, 90 again. And we're missing the 30-degree angle again. So let's add that in. So across from our 30 is going to be L. So across from our 30 is going to be our L. We don't know what that is right now. Across from our hypotenuse, across from our right angle is our hypotenuse, and our hypotenuse is equal to 2L. We do know what that is. And then our last leg, this is the longer leg, is going to be L square root 3. Okay? So now the only one that we have is our 16, which is our 2L. So we can create a very simple equation here. So our equation looks like this. 2L equals 16, right? And then if that's true, to solve for L, I just divide both sides by 2, and I get that L is equal to 8. All right, so that's going to be the value of B. So B is going to be 8. That's the shortest leg, and everything else is based on that shortest leg. So now to find A, which is L square root 3, this is the longer leg, I can now take my L, which is 8, and I can plug that value in for L. So this is going to be 8 square root 3. So A is 8 square root 3. There we go. Last but not least, let's look at some slightly more complicated problems here. So for example 3, it says find the missing lengths in the triangles below. So let's take a look. So we have for A, we have a triangle with a 90 and a 45 degree angle, 90 and 45. So that's a 45, 45, 90. That's a 45, 45, 90, which means that the missing angle is 45 degrees. Now looking at it, I know what my hypotenuse is. My hypotenuse is 8. But a 45, 45, 90 has a relationship that the hypotenuse is the leg times the square root of 2. Well, I don't know what either leg is right now because one is M and one is N. So L and M are both, M and N, are both L, right? And so I have to figure out what L is. Well, right now I don't have any easy way to figure it out because I have 8 and I have L square root 2. And I don't see a square root that matches, so I can't do what we did on example 2. So instead, we have to make ourselves an equation. So it's going to be 8 is equal to L square root 2, and we're going to solve for L. Well, it's L times square root 2, so we're going to divide square root 2 on both sides. Okay, but here's the thing about dividing by a square root of 2. Now I have a fraction with one whole number, one square root, and I can't have a square root in the denominator, okay? So we have to do something called rationalizing the denominator. So this is something that doesn't happen a whole lot in geometry, but I want to show you how to do it, okay? So 8 over the square root 2, that's the answer, Okay, so L is 8 over the square root of 2. But we can't leave a square root in the denominator. So what we do is we multiply by another square root. Because what's going to happen here, you'll see, is when we multiply two square roots together, we actually get a whole number. Okay, I'll show you what's going to happen. So we get 8 times square root 2 in the numerator now. And in the denominator, we get square root of 2 times 2. The square root of 2 times 2 is the square root of 4. But if we keep simplifying, we see that we get 8 square root 2 over the square root of 4, which is just a whole number 2. And so then we can divide these numbers, 8 divided by 2, okay? And we end up with a 4 and then a square root of 2, okay? So this 8 over square root 2 is the same as 4 square root 2, but this is what we call rationalized, and this is the best way to write that answer, okay? So they're both correct. It's just we're not allowed to write our answers this way when it comes to algebra, okay? All right, so that's what L is, and since M and N are both L, we're done, right? Since this is L and M and N are both L, then we're done. So M is 4 square root 2, and N is 4 square root 2, okay? All right, let's take a look at the next example. For example, 3B, we have a 90 and a 30, which makes this a 30, 60, 90. That makes this a 30, 60, 90. Okay, so we're going to use, again, the relationship that the shortest leg across from the 30 is L, the hypotenuse is 2L, and the longer leg is L square root 3. Okay, let's take a look. So let's go ahead and label those. So we have across from the 30, that's going to be the shortest leg, L. Across from the 90 is going to be our hypotenuse, which is 2L. And then the one that's left is the longer leg. That's going to be L square root 3. Okay? So what we notice here is the only side that has anything labeled is going to be this longer side. And, okay, we have an issue here. Not an issue, but it's not going to be super obvious what this is because it's not 9 square root 3, right? There's no square root 3 in it. So I can't just say, oh, it's going to be the number in front. So we do have to create ourselves a little equation again. So it's going to be L square root 3 equals 9, and we're going to solve for L. So doing that would be to, how to do that would be to divide by square root 3 on both sides. And again, we end up with an answer where we have L is equal to 9 over square root 3. We can't have that square root in the denominator. So we multiply by basically 1, right? But in the square root of 3 form, square root 3 over square root 3. And what that does is change what it looks like. It doesn't actually change the answer. It just changes what it looks like. So 9 square root 3 is our numerator over the square root of 9, because 3 times 3 is 9. And of course, we have 9 square root 3 in the numerator, but square root of 9 is just a whole number 3. So if you haven't seen this pattern, let me kind of point it out to you. When I multiply a square root by itself, right, I actually end up getting just that whole number. So that's one way to do that a little faster. And then if you divide those whole numbers there, 9 divided by 3, you actually get 3 square root 3 in this case. Okay, and that's our L. That's our shorter side. Well, L, right, is going to be y. So that means that y is 3 square root 3. Now we also need to find x. So to find x, we are going to have to plug in our L that we just found. So our L is 3 square root 3. We're going to have to plug that in here. So this is going to be 2 times 3 square root 3. All you have to do here is just multiply the numbers, the whole numbers, and keep the radical there as multiplied by it, right? And so what you're going to have is you're going to have 2 times 3, which is 6, and then square root 3. So this is going to be 6 square root 3 for this x value here. Okay, 6 square root 3 for your x value. Okay, that one's done. Let's look at one more. So for part C, we have, again, we have a 90 and a 30. So that means this is a 30, 60, 90. So this is a 30, 60, 90. The shorter leg across from the 30 is going to be our L. Hypotenuse is going to be 2L. And then our longer leg is going to be L square root 3. So what we're going to do now, since the only thing we have labeled is our longer leg, is we're going to make an equation out of that. Okay, so we're going to have that 4 square root 15 equals L square root 3. Solving for L, we have to divide by that square root 3 again. So divide by square root 3, divide by square root 3. Now you might have this urge to rationalize this because L is 4 square root 15 over square root 3. And you can do that, but there's actually a faster thing that we can do in this case. Since I already see that I have a square root in the numerator and the denominator, I can actually put those into one big square root. And that's actually going to benefit us because 15 divides by 3. And so that will actually make our life easy. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to change this so that it's 4 and then the square root of 15 divided by 3. So I'm taking these two singular square roots and I'm putting them in the same fraction, which becomes division, right? So now we have 4 and then the square root of 15 divided by 3, which is 5. And since square root of 5 is prime, there's no way to simplify that. So that's our answer for L. So since L is y, that's going to be this value. So y is going to be our 4 square root 5. Okay. And then to find our x will be super simple. It's just 2 times that value of L. So that's 2 times 4 square root 5. And when we simplify that, we get 2 times 4, which is 8. And the square root 5 doesn't change. So x is going to be 8 square root 5. And there we go. Done with these notes. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a great day.